Thanks for hanging with us here, Brian.
Yeah, no problem. I'm glad to be on here.
It's amazing.
It keeps me out of the hot distillery right now. So,
Oof. Yeah, I can imagine.
It's about 95 in the building. So
Not do it very well. You're in a rush.
I was in a rush. All right. Let's see. All right.
Yeah, I was at New Riff last week, and it seemed like it was cooler in the distillery room than outside. It was so hot outside.
It was, we had some of the screen doors open, but it was just awful yesterday. We were doing a mash yesterday, and it was unbearable. I think I drank probably a gallon of water.
And didn't pee once.
Yeah. Well, I wasn't going to include that for the audience.
I know.
We gotta have some good blooper rolls. All right. One second. I'm gonna get the chat up online. Stream is healthy. That's positive. Let's go here. Pop out the chat.
Turn this off.
For the
All right, cool. That works. We're gonna pause that so we don't have to worry about that. That over here. This over here.
There's so many windows right now. My head's about to explode.
There we go. We'll put it in here and be like, all right, about ready to start. All right. Cool. I think we're rocking and rolling now, Brian.
Here.
Excellent.
Brian has water, but
Water,
you're good.
thank you.
Need any more?
Gotta hydrate.
Absolutely.
Top it off.
Do this. We'll kind of tilt this down a little bit more. Brian, you want to scoot in a little bit closer to me too?
Sure. I'd love to.
Sorry, Brian. Sorry, Ryan, not Brian.
I can get really close.
Yeah, it's like this will get awkward real soon. All right, I'm gonna bring up my my notes here real quick, just because I had a few things kind of keyed up to kind of talk about. But I don't know if you've listened to the podcast before, but it is pretty. We just have to have casual conversation. We're not gonna be pressuring for information or anything like that. It's just gonna be more along the storyline of you, really kind of what your job role is at, of course, master distiller, but we'll kind of talk about really what it is. We'll talk about, give us some history about it as well, because I think that's one of the brands that most people probably don't know a whole lot about in regards. I mean, we know that it's part of Sazerac, but however, there's not a whole lot of, at least for our audience, they probably don't know a whole lot about the Bowman brand. So we'll talk about that. And just kind of like you're coming to H-Tail with bourbon.
Absolutely. I'm excited.
All right, cool. Sounds good.
Let's kick this Monday off right.
I know, right?
All right.
All right. So what we'll do is we'll talk for about 2 minutes or so, and then I'll lead it in with you. And just to make sure I'm saying everything right, Brian Prewitt.
Yep.
Okay.
And then perfect.
All right. And then master distiller of A. Smith Bowman, or is it Abraham Smith Bowman? What's the proper way to say it?
A. Smith Bowman, and it's actually Abram.
Abram.
Yeah.
That could have been bad.
A. Smith Bowman.
Okay. A. Smith Bowman. Got it. See, it's always weird because I was doing, we did a podcast last week and somebody was talking about S.O. Hackley. And I'm kind of like, you kind of want to talk about like, what does SO stand for? Like, is that mean anything to anybody? But all right, here we are. All right. Welcome back to another episode of Bourbon Pursuit, the official podcast of bourbon. Kenny and Ryan here today, talking to another master distiller we have never had on the show today, but it is coming from a distillery. I've got 1 or 2 bottles downstairs. Love what they're doing. Really good things over there. But it is it's not in Kentucky's backyard, which is a little bit different for us from time to time.
Yeah, typically, well, I'm surprised. This is like one of the master distillers we haven't had on, so I'm excited. Like we haven't had him on yet. I don't know what's taking so long. It's probably my fault. But,
no, we just gotta knock on the right door sometimes.
But they do have a great product. I don't know a ton about it, so I'm really excited to kind of get their story and info, but I had some great single barrel picks from them from Liquor Barn around here. So I know they're doing some good stuff, and excited to see what the future and past, present, all the above for this distillery.
Yeah, absolutely. It's kind of going to be a culmination of all those things, because what we've seen, at least around here in Kentucky, is being able to finally get your hands on some of these bottles. And now that, and it's got a unique bottle shape too. It's kind of like this oval looking heart shape kind of thing. And it's really cool. It really stands out on the shelf. And I think it's going to be good for our listeners to kind of learn more about the brand, more about the people that are behind the brand as well, because I think that's, again, what our audience really cares about. They want to know more about the stories of the people behind it. So,
yep. So let's stop talking and let's start asking.
Let's kick it off. So today on the show, we have Brian Prewitt. Brian is the master distiller at A. Smith Bowman out of Virginia. So Brian, welcome to the show.
Well, Kenny, Ryan, thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it. It's great to talk to you guys today.
So before we kind of dive into the history of Bowman and more about, you, we always like to kick off the show and kind of think of like, what is it that got you into bourbon, whiskey? Was there an early, like, I mean, and it's okay because we talked to a lot of people and they're all like, well, it started back when I was 12 and grandpa said, take a nip of this. So kind of talk about your first run-in experience.
Absolutely. So, for me, it was a little bit different. I started actually in school. I had no intentions of going into the alcohol beverage industry. I was in actually pre-med. And I had I was in a class literally looking for nerves or whatever it was on a cadaver. And I thought, this sucks. I hate this. I don't want to do this anymore.
Nerves on a cadaver, huh?
Yeah, it was not fun. And I decided, hey, you know what? I really like beer. Why don't I try and make beer? So I actually called up a local brewery, which happened to be a large Anheuser-Busch. And I was able to talk to the master brewer. Here I am, this college kid, and he said, yeah, come on down. I'll talk to you. I'll tell you how I got to where I was. And I went in and talked to him, and he said, yeah, this is what I did, and this is the path I took. And so I next day went in and changed my major to food science and did the whole food science thing at Colorado State, and then eventually went on to do the master brewers at UC Davis. And started in the brewing industry. So I was working a lot of small craft breweries across Colorado and California. And, after several years in the brewing industry, I decided I wanted to learn what beer became when it grew up.
When it comes, see, that's the fun part, though. You always got to start with beer before you get to the spirits anyway.
Absolutely. A lot of people don't realize, basically what we do here is for whiskeys is you make a beer, and then you're going to distill it after it ferments. So I kind of really wanted to learn about that. So I found at the time I found weaseled my way into the wine industry, which had a very large distillery with it, and was able to learn about under a master distiller and a master blender that had probably a combined about 80 years worth of knowledge. And I worked for them for well over a decade, and got to make all sorts of things. Got to make brandies and vodkas and gins, and spend time in Mexico making tequila and Caribbean rums and of course whiskeys. And but eventually I really wanted to get back to kind of my roots, which was small craft, high quality spirits, and that's what brought me to A. Smith Bowman. So it's kind of maybe a different route than some have taken versus just like, yeah, my father worked in the industry and I got in the industry. And it's I will say that all of my family is involved with the alcoholic beverage industry. My brother worked for breweries. My dad owns a winery, and I'm in booze. My sister's the only one that hasn't made it. She's a doctor. So,
you got it. She liked the nerves on the cadaver.
It's a trade-off.
Yeah, exactly.
So it sounds like you've worked with a lot of spirits. I know you're probably going to say you want to work, or whiskey is your favorite thing to work with, but what's been one of your favorite spirits to work with?
I absolutely love whiskey. And I mean, it came from, the brewing side, and just seeing what you can do with the grain bill, different yeasts, and then taking that on and the maturation side. I think that's great. Now, I don't discriminate against the spirits though. I love them all. I love all sorts of spirits. In the summer, sometimes it's nice to have a nice gin and tonic. Sometimes you need a nice brandy or rum drink when you're out on. You have to have a boat drink. Out on the boat, got to have that rum drink. But of course, nothing beats a nice single barrel bourbon. So.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. See, when I go on the boat, it's the only time I let it slide is like you get the Bud Light limes or you get one of those kind of like the very fruity kind of forward kind of beers. It's the only time it works is when you're on a boat.
Well, it takes plenty of beer to make good bourbon. So.
Absolutely.
We'll let it slide.
Well, cool. So that's good to see. So was there, I kind of want to talk about your family life here a little bit. So you talked about your family all kind of being in the alcohol beverage industry. Was there at least from your parents' side of it, was there an influence that said like, hey, like this is a good route for you to go? Was that an opportunity that you said you already kind of have experience in this because my family was a part of it? Like, was that an influential factor into it?
No, I think it was more, actually my father, he kind of started the winery that he runs. He started in retirement. So that's kind of like his retirement type thing. So it was all of us were kind of getting in the industry at all at the same time. And we all just kind of, I think we love the science aspect of it. We love the art aspect of it. We just kind of all went different ways. And it was just one of those things that, we get together and we have some pretty crazy Christmases and things like that, where you can, you really get to bring out the full spread of different, I'll call it tipples. You have a whole line of beers and a whole line of wines, and then of course I'll bring a lot of different whiskeys, and we have a good time on the holidays.
Yes, most families have like a chili cook-off. You all have like a booze off. Like mine's way better than what you're making.
So it was kind of interesting, but we definitely help each other out. And I'll get calls from guys all the time. They'll say, "Hey, I talked to your brother the other day, and I think don't believe a word he said." Or, "Hey, I was at your dad's place. I don't believe a word he said. He doesn't know what he's talking about." So, we give each other a hard time.
Well, that's okay. I mean, it's family. You have to give each other a hard time, especially in the holidays. I kind of like the booze off. We should make a Bourbon Pursuit booze off for our Christmas holiday party.
It wouldn't last long. My family, that like every time I bring straight bourbon or neat, they're like, "I can't believe you drink this. This is awful."
So let's, before we start talking more about your job and everything like that you've gone with, let's give our listeners kind of an understanding and background of really what's the history at A. Smith Bowman, because I just realized before we were coming on here that it is not Abraham, it is actually Abram Smith Bowman.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
We're the experts.
Yeah, so school us.
So A. Smith Bowman is actually one of the oldest distilleries on the East Coast. It was the oldest distillery in Virginia, started by Abram Smith Bowman. And a lot of his family actually kind of has roots to the pioneers of basically during the Revolutionary War, discovering what is now current day Kentucky. So if you're in Louisville and you go out to Bowman Field, that is actually part of what was discovered and named after one of the Bowman family.
Really?
Four centaurs of Cedar Creek as they were known, and all of our current day products are all named after the Bowman, like historical Bowman figures. But kind of getting to modern history of how Abram started it, he was actually the great grandson of Abraham Bowman, George Bowman. And he was actually in the distilling industry prior to Prohibition. He ran a distillery in New Orleans prior to Prohibition, one of the largest rum and bourbon distilleries, Algiers Point. And then after Prohibition, he happened to buy about 7,400 acres, and he opened up a granary and cattle. And then he, of course, Prohibition ends in 33. 34 is when it ended here in Virginia, and he decided, hey, I already know this business quite well. I have all my own corn. I have all my own rye. Let's start making bourbon. And, and that's what he started doing. So right in 34, 35, he started making bourbon. And his goal was basically straight, grain to glass. We did everything from, like I said, growing the grain. We harvested our own trees and made our own barrels. I mean, we did it all. And the whole point was to make, high quality spirits. And we kind of continue on with that kind of mantra today. We're known for making bourbons, of course, but we do other spirits as well. So that's kind of a little bit of the history of it. We give a complete history. If you ever make it down to Virginia, we'll give you the complete history.
There we go. We'll do the 30-minute tutorial one of these days with it. That sounds good.
Does it ever make you all mad that like Kentucky gets all the glory for bourbon when Virginia was like the state before Kentucky? You're like,
well, we have a lot. I will say a lot of people come in and they're very proud of their Kentucky bourbon heritage, and we're proud of it as well. But we always like to remind them that Kentucky used to be part of Virginia, and we say,
exactly.
well, we've been making bourbon here for a long time too. So just because it didn't.
And so the current operation.
Go ahead.
Oh, no, I was kind of just curious about like the current operation, like kind of like the year that really it started, or is it still like been all running since 18 whatever?
Well, so we started, like I said, in 33 in Fairfax County, which is about just outside of the Washington, D.C. area. And we moved it to their current location here in 1988. So we've been running here in this location since 88. And the reason we moved is because basically we sold off, the family sold off the farm. And the city of Reston, or that Fairfax County, which is well over 1 million people now, just kind of grew around the distillery. And they're having this distillery where literally they were walking the cows in from the farm to feed off the slop down the middle of the road. They kind of didn't like that so much. So moved to the distillery where we're at now, which is about 45 miles south of Washington, D.C. We're in the small town of Fredericksburg. And it's been a great location for us. So we're right along the Rappahannock River, and it's a great area for aging bourbons, and we've enjoyed it here so far.
Talk a little bit about like the history of the master distiller title at there as well. Are you the fourth, the first of the new one? Did they not have master distillers back then?
No.
Kind of talk about that.
Yeah, actually, so there's been 6 master distillers here in the history of the company since the 30s. The first one was for about 5 years, and then we had kind of 1 or 2 that only lasted about 5 to 10 years. And the previous master distiller was actually, or 2 master distillers ago, was actually here for about 30 years. He kind of took over as master distiller in the 80s until almost 2011. And then the previous master distiller to me was Truman Cox, who came from Buffalo Trace, actually. And he was here, I think he worked here for probably about 3 years, but he's only master distiller for a little over a year and a half. He sadly passed away very unexpectedly. And I took over from him. He had been gone for probably about 6 months when I took over. So I came into a building with, there hadn't been a master distiller for 6 months. So it was one of those things where you hope that the previous master distillers had taken notes, and you go in and you learn the still and you find out what's going on, and you taste through the stock. I know that's rough to do. Got to taste through all the stock to find everything out.
And thank you for taking that sacrifice for us. We appreciate it.
I'll that's okay. I'll do it again. I get it if I have to. So, but it was just trying to come in and find out what the house flavors were, how the stills ran, and just taking it from there. So I've been in this role for 6 years now. So
how long do you think it takes to become comfortable with existing setup and to kind of get those, like basic flavor profiles you're looking for dialed in?
It takes a little while. It takes, I think you have a good couple of months that, just tasting through all the stock, just going through and seeing where everything is. So, you're literally going out into the warehouse and you're saying, okay, what's this one? Okay, this is a year old. What's it taste like? Okay, this is 2 years old. What's it taste like? And then all the way up, 15, 16 years. And you're trying to find out, hey, what are the flavor profiles that are out there in the different parts of the warehouse? Because, you don't have anybody to tell you that, that historic, hey, this is where I did this and this is where I did this. And if I want this flavor, I pulled out of this area of the warehouse. You just don't have that. So, that took a little while, but, once you get there, I think then it's tweaking it to make little changes right off the bat, just to kind of make it your own style. and then kind of improve the product. And that's one of the things that we always want to do is, that's our logo or our motto here is pioneering spirit. So we're embracing our history and just pushing the future. We're just want to improve our products every day. So we don't want to just sit back and go, yeah, that's okay. It could be better.
So
really
they
that's
give you a
amazing.
little bit of free reign to make your own imprint on it. So it's not just like a plug and play, like this is the way we do it. Don't screw it up.
Well, absolutely. I mean, there is obviously you have an established brand, and you don't want to, if you have historic, customers of that brand, you don't want to just change it willy nilly. If you're going to make changes, you want to make sure they're for the better, and you want to keep improving them. But if it's a change that does make it better, makes it taste better, improves its overall appeal, then yeah, absolutely, a free reign.
Well, that's good because, one thing that we always talk about is how the bourbon industry just loves to hear about change, right?
Yeah.
Not really. Like it's always like, let's stay the course. Let's not shake things up too much or anything like that. So I guess the question that I kind of want to pose about, when you started coming in, you're figuring out like, how do we dial or how do we tweak things? Can you recall like one of those things that you kind of had to tweak to kind of figure out what it is to kind of make Prewitt's own signature bourbon right now?
Yeah, well, I mean, one of the things that I'm looking for as the heads were coming off the still, and I walk in and I'm like, all right, well, wait, what are you doing? Oh, we're making the cut. I'm like, not yet. You got to wait just a minute. And then, we do our heads cuts a little bit different. And then eventually, we're saying, okay, where's our ideal proof? Because we had some periods of time that I will say that, the proof really kind of varied quite a bit off the still. And we tried to dial that in and tried to really get consistency off the distillation process versus, just, hey, this is the way that we run it every single time. We wanted to go in and say, hey, each tank, each fermenter, each batch is different. So we're going to adjust our still to make sure that our flavor profile is consistent from distillation to distillation so that you don't have this huge variation from batch to batch. We wanted it, there was just processes that you have to go in and say, okay, this is how we want to run it. And just a little tweak here, a little tweak there. And, a lot of these guys have been working in the industry for 30 years and they kind of go, oh yeah, okay, that makes sense. These are good things to do. So, I think we've been successful in that. So.
Absolutely. And so I guess one of the things that maybe most people know about is that it is all part of the Sazerac portfolio. So Buffalo Trace, all that sort of stuff is part, Smith Bowman is part of that. Kind of when did that started happening when it became part of that portfolio?
So it actually, it's kind of interesting story because in the move for A. Smith Bowman from Fairfax to the current location, they had to take down all of basically the entire distillery, shut it down it took about 2 years to move the entire distillery. So they started partnering with what was at that time, before it was called Buffalo Trace, was Ancient Age. So they started partnering with them and doing the initial mash, gave them the yeast and the mash bill and things like that so that we could continue on producing. And then basically when, we kind of kept going in that direction. And in 2003, it was actually one of the first distilleries that Sazerac purchased from the Bowman family. They purchased the distillery in 2003. And it's an even better situation because we're able to, we're all part of one company and we can do all sorts of things, work together. It's a great network and we're all about, making the absolute best products that we can. So, which is wonderful.
What are some of the resources that I guess you gain from being with Sazerac versus just trying to do stuff on your own? Or is it is it like a big collaboration, I guess?
He's got Harlan's cell phone on speed dial. He's got that.
Well, yeah, we do have that, obviously, but some of the benefits are is, for example, barrels were really hard to come by a couple of years ago, right? Well, luckily we buy enough barrels that we're able to say, hey, we're part of this bigger network. Can we get barrels? Whereas if you're a small guy and you're only buying, a couple thousand barrels a year, you may not necessarily make the list for some of the big barrel producers. They say, well, our big barrel producer or our big customers already have it. We don't have barrels for you. So tough luck, which has been a benefit, getting the distribution and sales and marketing side of a larger company. Those just really work well. And it's a benefit for us, obviously, because we do run ourselves as a kind of a separate entity, a small distillery, but we do have that lifeline, so to say, to help us out when we have a problem. Hey, we don't have analysis for this kind of stuff. Can we send it to your lab and can you run it for us? And they'll say, yeah, absolutely, we can do that. And or hey, I have trouble getting this kind of grain or this kind of wood. Can somebody find it? And the guys will help you out. So which is a great thing to have.
And so I think you kind of sparked an idea in my head too, because one thing that I think the bourbon community really thought of for the longest time is like, oh, well, Smith Bowman, like all it is just sourcing from Buffalo Trace. And it's not that at all. You had just said like, oh, we gave them the mash bill so they can start basically contract distilling for us at the time. So kind of talk about really, is that still part of the current operation? Are they still distilling for you, or is everything shifted back over to your place?
We do a combination of a couple of things. So we do use a mash bill that is made for us. And actually, Buffalo.
It's not 1, 2, or wheat, right?
Well, come on, you guys know that we're a little bit.
You said we wouldn't be prodding for information.
We're a little tight-lipped about some of our recipes sometimes.
No, it's all good.
So it is what we do is we actually have them do the fermentation for us, do a primary distillations for us, and we'll get the high wines here. And then we'll finish up the distillation on a lot of our bourbon products. So distillation, aging, processing, bottling. But we also, we have full mash and cook capabilities here. So we'll do, just yesterday, we were using a local Bloody Butcher corn, local rye, and doing stuff on our pilot still, or our 500-gallon experimental still. So we have full capabilities here. We do a combination of both.
Is everything aged there in Virginia, or some aged in Frankfurt? Okay.
No, we have all of the stuff that we're putting out has been aged in our facilities.
And so it's I think it had to have been a few years ago now. There had been some pretty high aged releases that had come of limited edition sort of stuff that came from your distillery. I think like in the rounds like 14 or 17 years old and stuff like that. Was that still your all's product as well, or kind of give a little bit of?
Well, sometimes we'll go out there and it depends on the product. Most of the really old stuff has been aging in our cellars for quite some time, or our warehouses for quite some time. Sometimes we'll find I'll call them unique barrels that we use for certain products, and we'll bring them in and age them. And blend them. We're big on blending a lot of product here, so we like a little small batch. And sometimes when we do Abraham's, we'll do we'll find some very unique stuff that doesn't work. But the majority of them have been almost primarily 100% aged and produced here.
Great. So, I'm already learning something, right? Because like I said, from a real whiskey geek background, most people kind of assume that, part of the Sazerac portfolio, it's some of the stuff that's just could be the Buffalo Trace, basically mash bill coming in. But no, it's good to understand that there is this unique factor that is driving into it. And we had kind of touched about, talked a little bit about the operation, kind of talk about more along the lines of the size of what you're all able to do there. On your own, and maybe even with combination of what's happening inside of Frankfurt in regards of how many barrels are you filling per day and so on and so forth.
Well, and that's unfortunately one of the few things that they asked me not to speak about too much.
Okay,
as far as our production size, but I will say what we do in a day is, or even a year, is what some of our sister distilleries can do in a day. right?
Mhm.
You know, we find ourselves very very efficient. You know, we're able to distill at almost 10 barrels an hour on our 2,000 gallon pot still. So
Wow.
we're moving pretty quick on that. But and we can barrel really quickly. You know, we can empty a cistern tank in a matter of 2 or 3 hours. So we feel we're up there in terms of all of our infrastructure is made for a large distillery. But in terms of our production, we're what we would consider a micro distillery. You know, we're very small.
All right, we promise no more poking and prodding on my. Don't do it.
You talked about Sazerac helping you all get distribution into states. How many states are you currently available in?
Well, currently I think we're around 40 states,
Okay.
and we have distributed in the past to the UK. We do send some products to Japan as well. So we're out and about. Most of what we concentrate on, though, is of course Virginia, the East Coast. Kentucky's a big market for us. Indiana is also a good market for us. So I mean, it's kind of, if you look at the map and you look at the kind of the south or southeast states and mid-central states, it's really where we focus. But we do, I mean, of course, we have distribution in California, and we have some in Oregon and things like that. But for the most part, it's mostly in the East.
So I kind of want to like shift a little bit and kind of talk about back to kind of like the distillation, really like the flavor profile that you all are really trying to dial in on. You know, most people, I think Ryan brought it up in the very beginning, Kentucky's very proud, very, very proud of their bourbon.
Absolutely. And they should be.
And so kind of talk about really what is there an overall flavor profile difference that is, coming from you all? Because, we always try to talk about, limestone filtered water. It's so great here in Kentucky. But most people, if you listen to the show enough, we're like, okay, it's reverse osmosis everywhere. We can kind of sit there and like put a checkbox. Like that's really nothing important nowadays. So kind of talk about a different kind of flavor aspect that really you're trying to get with inside of your bourbon versus what you can get off the shelf of any other Joe Schmo Kentucky bourbon out there.
What we look for is a lot of like baked apple and cherry notes in the distillate. Our yeast really kind of produces that kind of note. So we want that to be emphasized in the raw spirit. The White Dog coming off the still. And we want it really clean. We want that nice corn. We want that sweet corn, a hint of that rye coming through. But we don't want it to be spicy. We want it to be really super smooth. And then when we age it out, of course, for the Bowman Brothers, I want a little more of the spirits to come through, a little less of the barrel. So a little bit of the vanilla, a little bit of the kind of the oak tannins to come through, with the emphasis on the fruitiness. And then when we go the John Jay, because it's a single barrel, we want the barrel to stand out a little bit more. So we want a little more of that coconut and heavy caramel notes. We want, that really toasty oak. And then in the background, we want that nice, smooth, kind of baked apple note.
I think I sound more like a John Jay person, because you said coconut, you said like oak, like that's, oh man, you just you pulled on my heartstrings right there.
Whereas I like the fruity and softer notes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So and people ask me which one's the best, and I say, well, I don't decide between the two, and then we kind of do one in the middle, which is our port finish. So if you like a little bit sweeter notes, we add a little bit more oak to that one, in terms of it gets a kind of a basically we're doing a finish on port barrels, ruby port barrels that we import from Portugal, and we also use Virginia port barrels. And then we age it, or we finish it in a Solera process. So we always blend all the barrels together at the end, French oak, American oak, and it's all in one big, huge oak tank at the end that we bottle out of, to get that kind of extra character. It gets some really nice fruit notes and some really nice oak notes. So kind of the combination of the two.
So if I'm taking my notes correctly, we got A. Smith Bowman, we got John J. Bowman, we've got the port finish. Is there any other products that we haven't talked about yet?
Yeah, so we have as far as our bourbons, we have our Bowman Brothers bourbon, which is a small batch bourbon. We have the Isaac Bowman, which is a port finish. We have our John Jay, which is a single barrel. Then we have our Abraham, which is our experiments. So those can vary in mash bill or finish or anything like that. Then we, of course, do rum, gin, and a vodka. And you have to do a cream liqueur, of course, a bourbon caramel cream.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Now, do those have the Bowman name to them as well with the gin and the vodkas?
Yeah, the gin is actually called Sunset Hills, so it's named after our original farm. And the vodka is called Deep Run, which is the name of the lake, which is right in front of the distillery. And George Bowman is our rum, and it's a Caribbean rum. And then Mary Height, who is the matriarch of the Bowman family, that's our bourbon caramel cream.
You didn't pull Harlan Wheatley and name it Brian Prewitt
vodka? No, I don't have that kind of pull, I guess. I don't think they would look at it and they'd probably pronounce it wrong, or they go, I don't want that stuff.
You're just humble.
I try to be. We have we really appreciate that people enjoy our brands, and we hope that they enjoy what we're putting out. That's the whole goal. Is that I go in, day out, and put I put my passion into what I'm doing, and I hope they enjoy it.
So I want to talk about, Kenny will probably make him mad, but I want to talk about gin for a second. Just because
talk about gin pursuit.
Just because I've been going to a couple distilleries and they happen to be producing gin that day, and so kind of putting in their different blends and their own botanicals in it and stuff. So talk about your gin and what kind of makes it unique, and what do you like about it?
Well, I didn't even mention the fact that we actually have 5 gins out there right now. So we do a lot of gins. Yeah, we
gin curious now.
Yeah, we have our Sunset Hills, which is kind of I'll call it a straight London dry style, fairly simple in flavor profile, only about 4 different botanicals. But then we actually do a line called the Tinkerman's line. I'm the Tinkerman, I guess. And we're tinkering with different styles, different distillation methods. And then we have a Citrus Supreme. We have a spice, which we're doing more of the brown spice characters. And we have a balance, which is called Bright and Complex. And then we actually made with local rye. We just not more than a half an hour from the distillery, we did a 100% rye base rye gin. We called it Rye Expectations. We used rye as a botanical too. So, we like to use that. And, that's one of the ways when we have some extra time on the still, it's really fun to get in there. And, you can, unlike bourbon where it takes, 7, 10, 12, 15 years to really see your product, you can turn around and come up with a recipe. And the next day you can taste it. You're like, oh yeah, okay, that was fun.
So how do you incorporate these botanicals? Do you throw them in like a tea bag and throw them in there, or or do you just throw them straight in there? How do you extract these different flavors?
It kind of depends on the recipe, but we'll do a lot of times we'll do kind of the maceration in the pot. So we'll throw all the botanicals in the pot, but certain botanicals, like for example, if we're putting elderflower in there, or some of the it's kind of the more floral aspects that we put into some of our gins. We'll actually put it in a gin basket, which is actually in the steam, the vapor line of our still. And so it's vapor extracted. So we'll put certain things in, like vanilla bean or elderflower or things like that, that we don't want to just sit there and boil and cook them. We want just the really nice top notes to come out. And depending on the method, we'll use sometimes a combination of the two, and we can even sometimes do extractions and then distill it. So it's just kind of depends on the gin.
Could you do that with bourbon or whiskey, any type? I guess not. Well, because if you have the 51% corn, and then say you want to get certain fruity flavors or certain vanillins, could you technically extract them from in the still?
Technically yes. Whether or not it could be legally called whiskey is a different story. But yeah, you could probably do that. I wouldn't put it past that maybe something like that has happened.
So there's the Prewitt. That's the Prewitt product.
Then he's fighting a battle with the TTB of what do we even classify this thing as?
Yeah, everything gets good. Oh, then now it becomes a DSS.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yep.
All right, off the gin tangent.
I was going to say, you got any more gin? Gin things going on?
I just find it interesting because, like you said, you can distill it there and get the flavors right then and there versus having to wait. So I was always curious about it.
You gotta have your vitamin G and vitamin T in the summer. So
that's right. Exactly.
So, one thing that we kind of talked about at the very top of the show, Ryan said that, the products that he tried were all single barrels. So kind of talk a little bit about the single barrel program that you do have there. I've been made aware of it at some point. We probably need to do our own single barrel there too. And we'll
get invited.
Yeah. Well, if we get invited, just let us come out there. We'll choose a barrel.
Well, and we kind of for a while, because the John Jay is really what we do is single barrels, and it's a well-aged product. It's anywhere from 9 to 14 years typically is what we'll age that product in a single barrel. And what we like to do there is, anything that really kind of goes out in our normal production runs, I want a specific flavor profile. I want that, like I mentioned earlier, that vanilla and the coconut and the high toasty notes. But sometimes you get some barrels that are really, really good, but don't meet the flavor profile of what you would expect on the shelf. So if you were to buy a John Jay today, and then a couple weeks later go out and buy another one, and they didn't taste the same or similar, you might be a little bit upset, and you may have loved it before and you didn't love the next one. So what we do is, barrels that are slightly different, barrels that maybe have a little more spice, or maybe a little more fruit, or maybe a little more vanilla. They're wonderful in their own right. We put those into a lot of our private barrel selections is when we do those. So that's why, some people have specific tastes that they're looking for. They're looking for more of an earthy, spicy. Some have more of a, like I said, a sweeter profile. And those are the ones that we've done in the past, and we've been pretty tight on barrels just because of just purely on the amount of, I don't think any of us expected the growth of single barrel bourbons to take off like it has. And so we've been playing catch up, but hopefully we'll have more and more of those barrels available in the future. But there has been some absolutely spectacular ones that have come out recently. Some ones that I put in I call them my spice rack. If I have something that is really amazing, doesn't fit the profile of John Jay, but maybe potentially, if I can use it for blending. Like I mentioned, blending into an Abraham down the road, hey, I need a little more spice, or I need a little more fruit. And then I'll take these out of the spice rack, and occasionally they just sit up in the spice rack and I can't find a home for them. So I let people taste them, and if they like them, they can take them home.
See, there's the sticker idea for the Bowman pick. The spice rack.
The spice rack.
So are you familiar with single barrel stickers? How people are putting these gaudy, stickers on the back?
Oh yeah, absolutely. We do those for people. Absolutely.
What would you do for a single barrel pick of your choice?
Oh, well, I have a couple of barrels up there that are really amazing. I've been sitting for a while, and they're getting up there in proof. I should probably pull them pretty soon, but it kind of depends on the day. Some days I like a little more spice in my bourbon. And other times I like a really soft, almost a wheated profile. So it just kind of depends on the day.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to go ahead and put in a request now, because if you go through and you find one that is like super coconut, it tastes like an Almond Joy, just go ahead and earmark that one and be like,
all right, hold on, let me mark this down right now.
Yeah.
Yes. As you're going through your sampling today.
Yeah, sampling, put it on a Post-it note and be like, all right, this is for the Bourbon Pursuit guys.
We'll send you some stickers you can throw on there.
Yeah, absolutely.
Make sure they're really big and round and cover the whole back.
Sure.
Got you covered.
Yeah, we'll do it. That sounds great. We'll send you our handwriting too, so you can just like trace it on the barrel head. So we can just go ahead and claim it. So the one of the things that we always like to kind of talk about is, you kind of talked about extra still time and kind of like what can we do, create some experimentations, do some crazy gins and stuff like that. But we look at really what's happening into the bourbon market and the bourbon world. And one thing that you as a master distiller, you have to do, you have to kind of look at the spreadsheet and start calculating like what is this bourbon market, what is this boom going to look like in the next few years? Is there going to be a bust? What's it going to look like? Where do you kind of see the market trending here in the next 3 years, 5 years, decade? 3
years, 5 years. I think it's going to start slowing down a little bit. It's just been growing. It's such fast pace. I think it'll slow down just a little bit, but by that, I mean, instead of double digits growth, we're going to have high single digit growth and type things. And I don't see it stopping. I don't see a fall of whiskey and bourbon in particular in the near future. I think it'll just kind of flatten out for a while. We've had this huge spike. I think you're going to see, people will, rye for a long time. No one wanted to drink a rye, and now all of a sudden rye is popular again. So I think we'll see a little bit of that come up. I think it's going to be healthy for the next few years. And probably the next 5-10 years, I think it'll be pretty healthy. At least we're counting on it. We're putting down the stock for that. So I hope it continues that way, and I hope I'm right. So otherwise, I got a lot of stock. I'm going to have to figure out what.
Well, we're in the bulk market.
Yeah, well, not only that is we like to drink whiskey too. We'll be more than happy to help you just go through and sample every barrel that's out there.
Yeah. So talk about Virginia and how they've kind of embraced you guys, and hung their hat on you as like, this is our distillery. Do you kind of have that with the state or?
Well, we do. There's, it's interesting. In the last, up until the 50s, we're really the only distillery in Virginia. And now, over the past 5 years, just the distilling industry in Virginia has really taken off. We've gone from, being 20 small distilleries in the state to now I think there's 70 in the state. But I think a lot of people still embrace the fact that, bourbon is one of the products and whiskey is one of the products that is made and has been made in Virginia for a long time. And there's a lot of people that really are putting out some great products. And, and I think it's great that a lot of people look to A. Smith Bowman and they go, oh yeah, okay, that's the model that we should follow for making a great bourbon or a great whiskey in the state of Virginia. And I think a lot of people who have lived in this area for a long time, they know us and they know our products. And, of course they go to their football games and they have their bottle of A. Smith Bowman and that's their tradition. I have guys that'll send me hey, I'm 80 something years old and I've been drinking A. Smith Bowman bourbon since, I was 20. Which is great to hear. It's one of those legacy products that you just don't find the history in a lot of the smaller distilleries, and I think that's a wonderful thing to be a part of that history.
Absolutely, and I think you kind of struck something in my head when you started talking about it went from 20 now to 70. Do you see a lot of like competition coming through your doors and saying, oh, let's go see what Brian's up to over here. Let's see if we can take down a few notes in our
absolutely. We had a lot of people that do that. We'll have the local distiller will say, hey, can I come up and walk through the distillery and spend some time with you? And I say, absolutely, you can come walk through the distillery. We do tours every hour on the hour. And we don't hide anything, and you can see exactly what we're doing. Now, we may not tell you exactly what we're doing. We may not tell you, hey, this is the mash bill, this is how we're doing this, but you can see what we're doing. And we're very, we're supportive. We really think that the industry has room to grow, and we want to support them. But we also, I don't want the industry to go in such a way that people look out and they see the smaller distillers and go, oh, they don't make anything good. So that's why we really want to support and say, yeah, you got to put out a good product. And if you can see, you want to come in and see how we're doing things, that's fine. I may not tell you a whole lot, but you're welcome to come in and walk around.
So how's bourbon tourism been in Virginia? Because like here it's exploded. Have you guys seen that as well in Virginia?
Well, for us, tourism is a little bit harder than it is. A lot of people go to Kentucky and they go to Kentucky to go visit distilleries. For us, it's a little bit different. We have, we're right in the middle of, I'll call it historic, where people are coming to see, Civil War. We're the distillery site is actually a site of a Civil War battle. There's a lot of historic sites as far as the Civil War, the Revolutionary War. George Washington was actually lived, his boyhood home is literally across the river from the distillery. So a lot of people come for the history, and it's our challenge is to get them to come in and visit the distillery. Now, I think the Virginia wine industry has done a great job of getting people to realize that there's wine in the state. And then, of course, breweries have been doing pretty well as well. So it's been a struggle for us as far as getting the visitors here, but we still, this last year we saw almost 30,000 people come through the distillery. Obviously not the hundreds of thousands of people that people will go to larger distilleries, but we're hoping that we can grow that and let people know that, yeah, we're a distillery that's been here for a long time, and we plan to be here for another 85, 90 years at least.
So you got to figure out a way to get yourself on the history trail over there, right?
Yeah. Take a break from the capitals and all the
stuff
up north and come down and
you go do the Capitol, you go across the river, you go see George Washington's house he grew up in. Then there's this old distiller over here. Oh, and we get to drink. Absolutely, yeah. Count me in.
Absolutely. That's our whole goal, is how to get them. You're like, hey, yeah, that's a really nice monument there, but come see a distillery, have a drink.
Yeah. That's an easy sell point for me to come in. Just say, yeah, let's go do that. You can go see a monument every single day if you wanted to, but being able to drink with somebody, yeah, go ahead and chalk that one up. So I guess we're coming down here to the end of this, and I kind of want to get a little bit more information about really where do you kind of see is there expansion? Is there ideas of like how much more bigger is Smith going to get in regards of like what you all are trying to do in regards of growth or anything like that?
Yeah, well, right now we're actually in the midst of an expansion. We're adding tanks. We've added just in the past, probably I'm going to say about a month, we've added about 11 tanks to our production. We're hoping to add to our bottling line here pretty soon to be able to pick up production because we really want to, we're coming up. Some of the moves that we made a couple of years ago when I came in 5-6 years ago was to increase some of our small batch production and increase some of our John Jay and things like that. And those are kind of coming into fruition now, and we're hoping to expand and make more of that bourbon available. But I don't think we ever really have any ideas. We don't want to become this huge multi-million case distillery. We want to be focused on making the absolute best products that we can. The best bourbon that we can find. Excuse me here, guys. Sorry about that. The best bourbon that we can find, or best bourbon that we can produce, and best gins, best vodkas, best rums. We want to absolutely make great products. And if we grow to be, a larger regional size, great. But that's not really our focus. Our focus is to make a great product.
And Sazerac supports that vision. They're not like, yeah, that sounds great, but we want to crank out as much juice as possible.
I'm sure they
most
do.
Of the time, yeah, no, absolutely. They absolutely 100% support making the best product that we can make.
Very cool.
Yeah, absolutely. And, and shout out to Matthew, who was here on the chat. He just said, thanks for joining in, Brian. It was so great to actually learn about a brand that's flying under the radar for a lot of the bourbon geeks out there. Because like I said, for myself, learning more about the mash bill and really how the operation kind of functions, and, knowing that your single barrels are 9 to 14 years old, like that's got some age on it for even.
Absolutely.
For even most of the Sazerac portfolio, when you're looking at the Weller Antiques, you're looking at 6 years old, maybe 7, something like that. So seeing of what's coming out of Virginia, can't wait to go get my hands on some more of those bottles. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll be sending them your way.
You got it.
I'm earmarking those barrels.
Yeah, go earmark that barrel. I got my credit card. We're ready to start swiping.
Okay.
But Brian, thank you again for coming on the show today, giving us some more information about A. Smith Bowman, the history, sort of your history, and how you kind of cut your teeth in the industry, and kind of your family life too. I think it'd be fun to get your whole family on here one day and kind of see you all kind of like go back and forth if there's any of that.
It would definitely be interesting. I'll say that.
So last way to kind of give a shout out. So if people want to know more about you or they want to visit the distillery, where do they go and do that?
Know more about us or visit the distillery, go ahead and go to asmithbowman.com. That's the best way to find us and any information about us. We're on Twitter and Instagram as well, but you can get all that from the website.
There you go. And ride the coattails on their Virginia history trail and stop over there.
Yep.
And and then go and get yourself a nice bottle of A. Smith Bowman to take home, or John J. Bowman. I think the John J. at least fit my flavor profile.
Absolutely.
That's
Well, and you never know. You can come in and try them all next time you're in the area.
okay. Sold.
So
Yep. So make sure everybody that you are, you check out their website. Make sure you go to bourbonpursuit.com. We've got links on there for all the episodes that we've had. If you want to know more about any of the Sazerac portfolio, you can kind of check out some of our past episodes we've done there too. If you want to follow us, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, we're all over the place there. Yeah. And then also thank you to everybody that is a Patreon supporter that was joining us watching this show live as it happened on YouTube. Just again, one of those perks of being able to watch this live before it actually goes out on air. So Brian, go ahead and close it out.
yeah, for sure. Brian, thanks, man. That was very interesting and great. Like you said, the bourbon has been crazy growth, and we're kind of have blinders on. We have these Kentucky brands, things that we're used to, and like we focus on those, but then you forget that there's these guys like you all doing such great things, and like he's flying under the radar. And with the flavors you were talking about, like I think Kenny and I might run out and go get some bottles after this.
I just want to find some more coconut.
That's the coconut and the oak and all. Yeah, but no, appreciate your time, man. It's a cool story, and I want to come to your holiday party. So we'll do these booze wars.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I'll put the invitation out next time.
Cool. So, if anyone has any show suggestions, comments, feedback, let us know. We're always here to serve you guys, bring the audio to you. So we'll see y'all next time.
Cheers.
Cheers, guys.
There we go, Brian. Did awesome.
Yeah, that was awesome.
Yeah. Thanks for everything. We appreciate it.
No, absolutely. More than happy to. I know. I think Amy said she was watching this on YouTube too. So hi, Amy, if you're watching this. So
the babysitter.
Oh, it's okay. We need every once in a while.
I know. We do.
But hey, thanks again, Brian. We will let Amy know. We're going to figure out our release calendar, sort of when these are going to go out. It'll probably still be a few months. This is actually kicking off our recording week. We're doing 9 or 10 recordings this week, something like that. So we're gonna.
You are our first.
Right.
Yeah, you're the first of the week. So it was good. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thank you. Take care, guys.
All right. Have a good one, man.
See everybody later. Or see everybody later, everybody.